Get ready, Blue Jackets fans. It's time for this week's podcast edition of The Inside Edge. Here are your hosts, Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.
Okay, guys, show us what you got.
Welcome to The Inside Edge. I'm Bob McElligott, joined by Jody Shelley. And, this week, not on the radio, going back to the podcast format here because of Ohio State basketball. But, Jody, right now, the Blue Jackets enjoying the day off today. That comes on the heels of losing last night to the Ottawa Senators. And the Blue Jackets, who last time we did this show were in the midst of a long winning streak, now all of a sudden have found themselves lose the last three games. So Todd Richards talked about it all the time during that streak, saying how quickly things can go the other way, how you might not get that one bounce or that one goal, and all of a sudden here are the Blue Jackets on the other side of it, looking for a way to get out. Hopefully this day off and a day of rest and relaxation will be the first step in turning it back around.
Yeah, and that's the key here, turning that around. This team, started with Buffalo here at home at Nationwide Arena. That was looking for 9 in a row. Buffalo was last team in the NHL, in front of their home fans. That one stung a bit, but it kind of looked like, okay, if this is just a blip on the radar, fine, move on. Then you go down to Carolina and play a team that you're really battling with. It's a team that's right there, 1 point behind you going into the game. Take a 2-0 lead early, and then to have them lose the game in the third period in a 3.5-minute span was it was gut-wrenching. So then you come back the next night, you have Ottawa waiting for you at home, and I thought the Jackets would come out and blow the hinges off the doors. They didn't. They looked a little lethargic. They didn't get their sync. There was a lot of excitement when they tied it up. I mean, when they scored the first goal there, and I think it was on the power play, and then they tied it up. It was exciting in that building. It looked like the push was actually going to happen, maybe learning from the night before against Carolina and what they'd done to the Jackets. It didn't happen. Jason Spezza sealed the deal, made it 3-2 late in the game, 3 minutes left, I think, just over 3 minutes. And that was it. So here we sit today on a day off. I'm sure that the players have put it behind them, but it makes the day off. You just have that taste in your mouth and you're anxious. By the end of the day and into tomorrow, they'll be excited to get back on the ice and right the ship here.
I want to ask you this. You asked Todd Richards last week about winning streaks and how much they hide the warts on the team. And then he went on to say a couple of days later, we still have the warts, but they're not as many as they were. Now, as you mentioned, you thought the Blue Jackets would come out against the Ottawa Senators and really just open it up and be taking charge right from the beginning, and they didn't do that. Is that a wart? Is that a sign? Is that something that should cause a little bit of concern?
Well, I don't know about that for sure. But the question that I mentioned to Todd was because I was in San Jose with Todd, and we won and won and won. We win a lot of games. And some games we'd be sitting there after thinking, how did we win that game? We had no business winning the game. Oh, yeah, the power play scored 3 goals, right? But you move on as a group. You just keep that good feeling going. And Todd said right away, he stomped on that question. He said, no, it's easier to coach when we're winning. There's a lot of people doing some good things. But, no, I have to be that guy and point the bad stuff out when we're winning too. And he's doing that. Listen, the regular season is a process. You're going to win. You're going to lose. You're going to win games you don't deserve to win. You're going to lose games you don't deserve to lose. And this team has learned pretty much in all situations. They were blown out in Edmonton there. It was a bad game. They rebounded, and they responded. So if you take these little segments, okay, the 8-game winning streak is good. They had some good games. They were winning by committee. They got timely scoring, timely goaltending. And this losing streak, not so much. The power play didn't click for one game. One game, the goals weren't great against. And you can go on and on and on, waiting for someone to grab that game. I thought the last game against Carolina, no one really grabbed it. It's going to happen. I think they hit a bit of a wall here. I think this day off is important. They know that there's a finish line, and that's February 8th, the day after the last game in San Jose. There is a finish line. So this last segment before the Olympic break it down, push for it, push through it, set yourself to be in a good position here as to what they're going into, and then take a break and then get ready to come back for the final push of the season.
All right, let's talk about what is between now and that Olympic break, and it is not going to be an easy road, and a lot of it is going to be on the road, as a matter of fact. First of all, it all starts tomorrow with the Washington Capitals coming in. Yes, the Blue Jackets handled them here easily, really, 5-1 just 2 weeks ago. They're going to be hungry. They come into the game after an overtime win in Buffalo. Then after you play against the Washington Capitals, you've got the Florida Panthers coming in. And that's another one of those games you can look at on paper and say, yeah, we should probably win that game, but they're playing better right now. And it wasn't that long ago they just went into Pittsburgh and put up 5 goals. So you never know with that team. And then you've got to hit the road, Go out to California leading into the break. You're going to play the Anaheim Ducks. They've been terrific all year, and they've been extra terrific on home ice. You got to play against the Los Angeles Kings at Staples Center, and then you have to go back-to-back and finish it up with the San Jose Sharks in San Jose, where they play very well at home. So this is not going to be easy going into the break, and I'm sure these guys know that, and I guess we're not going to know if that's a good thing or a bad thing until it's all said and done.
Wow, that sounds like a lot on their plate there, Bob. Like, I mean, whoo! Yeah, I'm exhausted just thinking about that. You know, and they know that, and that's realistic. That California trip, yeah, boy, that's going to be a tough mountain to climb, but they're going to be ready for that. It's the last segment, the last 3 games before the break. They're focused on Washington. Washington's a dynamic team who lives and dies on the power play. They got players that step up, players like Green, who won the game the other night in overtime. Those players, every team has something that they can bring to the table every night. You say the Florida Panthers will be the next night. They're going to be dangerous, and it's 2 points, and they're going to be crucial. The Jackets have to focus on game to game and get what they've done a good job on is they have an identity. And I think they're ahead of some of these teams that are right around them because they have a work ethic identity that they can fall back on. They didn't have it the other night, last night, at home, and that's fine. But now they have to put a stomp on this and get their stamp on the game, stamp, and get things going.
Stomp, stamp, get things going. That sounds like a T-shirt down the road somewhere. I think it could be. But you're right. And I guess that's why I just bunched all those games up together. I guess that's why the old adage is 1 game at a time, right? It's not as menacing if you go 1 at a time.
It's not. And if you can and that's how you kind of go through a winning streak. You don't really know you're in a winning streak per se, is that's not the focus. The focus is just put your head down and win a game and win a game and win a game and march on. And then maybe look up and say, oh, wow, we've won 4 in a row, win a game. You know, that's kind of what they did. And then the media and brought to attention that the record was at 6 in a row. Oh, they got that. They got to 7. They got to 8. Great things are happening in January. It's going to be interesting to see if they'll finish it with 10 wins here, which they have a chance to do tomorrow night against the Washington Capitals. That's a good month. And then go into February and make it a great month.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You could still finish with that double-digit wins for the month, and that would be something really to hang your hat on going into February. We've got more coming up as the Inside Edge continues right after this.
One of the things we look for in our spine specialist at Ohio Health is, well, backbone. The backbone to know when not to operate. The backbone to treat and relieve spine patients' pain without surgery in 80% of all cases we see, using workable options like advanced physical and occupational therapy and other pain intervention solutions. So when you need quality spine care, remember, we have your back. Connect with us at ohiohealth.com/spine. Ohio Health. Believe in we.
In the nation, people are remembering driver's ed, and their deductibles are disappearing because Nationwide insurance members who had vanishing deductible get $100 off each year of safe driving.
Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Insurance is proud to be the official insurance provider of your Columbus Blue Jackets. Contact a local agent or visit nationwide.com.
Optional feature subject to eligibility, underwriting guidelines, review, and approval. Max credit $500. Details and availability vary by state. Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Republic Services is a LEED certified organization. Every day, at home, at school, at work, we take care of millions of customers just like you. As proud partners of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Republic Services is excited to show your home, school, and work how resourceful, respectful, reliable, responsible, and relentless we are in our pursuit to protect you and the environment.
You know, hockey's it's a sport that you don't have to be a hardcore hockey fan to go watch. I'm always hearing that when people come to Nationwide, they have a blast. As a fan, you have a chance to be a part of something now. I can tell you this, if you come to a game, you're going to be in for a heck of a ride. And it's going to be fun for a long time. Join us. Be a part of it.
Join the battle when the Blue Jackets face the Washington Capitals, Thursday, January 30th at 7 p.m. Get tickets now at bluejackets.com.
The Inside Edge. Here are your hosts, Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.
Welcome back to the Inside Edge. Bob McElligott alongside of Jody Shelley. Blue Jackets getting set to take on the Washington Capitals tomorrow night. That will be the first move in 5 games before the Olympic break. Let's talk a little bit about that Olympic break, and not so much about the Olympics themselves, Jody, but a lot of the concern here in the last week or so has been about the Olympics and the security. Let me ask you, if you were a player and you've been selected to play for your country and go to the Olympics, would any of that be in the back of your mind, how safe that you might be going into that situation?
No question. I mean, that's it's a situation where you're going into Russia. They're already talking about black widows. A black widow, so a lady has already breached security. She's inside of Sochi. And I watched a documentary on HBO, Real Sports, and they did a whole thing on what they've done over there. They've put in like over $50 billion into this town, which is like a resort town in Russia, which I didn't know. It might be the only town in Russia that doesn't have snow in the winter. It's palm trees and beaches. And they've put up walls to cover up the slums. They're trying to really put the cosmetics to it to make it look really great. And security, they say they have 47,000 security members hired. You think of that, 47,000. There's a lot they're putting into it. But initially, as you hear these things that could happen and these things, reports of high alert and some of the, people have, there's been people from Team USA and Canada who have supposed to have their family go, but they're not going now. It's definitely a threat. So realistically, the players are on edge a little bit about it. I know that, but I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just the initial not knowing.
Yeah, the initial not knowing is right. And the Olympics is usually one of those events that gets worldwide attention. So, and this goes back. This didn't just start in the last Olympics or the Olympics before. I mean, let's go back to Munich, Germany, and then go back to Atlanta and the Summer Games, the bomb in the park, all those kind of things. So this is one of those situations. I wouldn't want to be the head of security at one of these things. I really wouldn't, because whoever's doing it is getting paid a boatload of money because it is a huge responsibility. I know that the U.S. government has offered services to Russia to help out with security. I doubt that they're going to take them up on that, but they're going to be there. Everybody's going to be watching with a close eye. But from an athlete standpoint, you just want to go and play the game. You don't want to have to worry about that. You want to play for your country, and it's kind of unfortunate that has to be in the back of your mind.
Right, you're there for the experience. I mean, that's really one of the nice things about the Olympics is the opening ceremonies. You parade in for your country, the medals you could win, representing your country. It's a big deal to wear those colors. So, and then obviously in the hockey sense, everyone wants to win a gold medal in any sport. But yeah, that's it's a nice feel good event. Even at the closing ceremonies, you see every nation walking together. It's a good thing. So anything like these security issues, which are real issues in today's world, they have to be talked about. But I think it puts a little bit of hesitation in some minds of some of these athletes.
A couple of weeks ago when the Olympic teams were announced for these different nations, we went through who made teams, who didn't make teams, who got jobbed on it, who should have been there and they're not, who is there and maybe they shouldn't be there. But one guy we just saw this past week, and that's Alexander Semin of the Carolina Hurricanes. Initially, he was not going to the Olympics. When he got that news, he turned his game up, and he started playing really well. And, lo and behold, somebody got hurt. Now he is going to the Olympics, and his game continues to stay up. So this is kind of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. For anybody that's on the bubble, no matter what country it is, hey, just keep on playing and be playing at the top of your game, because if somebody comes down, that's who they're going to look for, the guys at the top of their game.
I think Russia did an interesting thing there. They sent a message to a highly skilled player. I mean, Semin is one of the best players in the world when he's on. And he wasn't playing very well. They took note, and they weren't going to take him. They took a pretty high percentage of KHL players, actually. There's a KHL league over there in Russia, and they took, I don't know how many, I think at least 6 guys off that roster, left Semin off. One guy got hurt. Actually, there's been 2 injuries on that Russian team. Semin slides in there, and like you said, since he was left off, he's been on fire. He's been scoring goals. I think going into last night's game, he had 6 goals in 5 games against before the Blue Jackets game the other night. Sorry, and he's just that type of player. He's dynamic. Before that, he signed a big contract with Carolina. They reached out to a big contract for him, and here he is. And there's been no other players around the league. I mean, look at Martin St. Louis. The night after that, he didn't get on the team, or 2 nights later, he went out and scored 4 goals. And then Jack Johnson for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I think Jack would never admit it, but he's been a different player since that announcement. I don't know if it's been positive for the Blue Jackets. And I look at him and I think, how can you not have this guy on Team USA?
Well, I agree with you, and I think the one big element that stands out to me about his game ever since that announcement is he's been a lot more physical. It's like he's playing mad. He's playing with a purpose, and as you said, that's good for the Blue Jackets. And quite selfishly, if somebody were to not be able to make it to the Olympics and they put him on, I'd feel great for him. I'd feel very happy for him. But I kind of like that snarl that he's been playing with ever since January 1st.
Yeah, I agree with you. And he's a big body and maybe playing a little hesitant before that. But I tell you nailed it. He's been physical. And you look even at the last game, he was throwing, I think, Kyle Turris of the Ottawa Senators. Boy, he planted him on the end boards, and it was something to see. Just man strength out there, and it's been good for the Blue Jackets. Another guy who I saw last week, Claude Giroux, was left off Team Canada. Now, I'm a big Claude Giroux fan, and I got some time with him, and I said, it's that Olympic thing. I would have taken him on my team. And he looked at me and said, man, I was disappointed. And I said, well, would you go, though, now if they invited you now? They didn't take you initially. You got cut from the team, left off. But if they called you tomorrow and said, would you be on that team? He said, absolutely. So he still has that in the back of his mind. He's still not at the top of his game. He had a terrible start to the year, and I really didn't think that played into it. But kudos to the management who made their decisions. They went on who was hot at the moment, and look at Semin. You can take a look at Johnson and Claude Giroux. 3 big names have been left off of their teams. Semin slides in. Hopefully the other 2 can too.
All right, one more thing for you before we finish this up. A lot of people talked about there might be a lot of movement before the Olympics with that trade deadline freeze that's going to go into effect right after the Olympic break officially starts. It's been kind of quiet as of late, except for a buddy of yours, Michael Del Zotto, getting sent to the Nashville Predators in exchange for Kevin Klein from the New York Rangers. But it's been kind of quiet. But do you get the feeling that there are some rumblings out there and that a lot of teams are really trying to figure out right now, okay, where are we? What do we need? Who has what we need? And what's it going to cost us?
Yeah, that's, I think, I don't know anything, but you just hear like Buffalo's GM, Tim Murray, just came out and said, it's the question of is there anyone who's untouchable? And his answer was no. Everyone is available on this team. I think he's excited to get a first trade in. He's a guy, new GM. He wants to put a stamp on that team. So when you see a team like that, there's teams that are right on the edge in both conferences that would like to add that piece. Now, no one wants to give up a prospect, but that's just how it has. You don't want to give up a piece of your puzzle, but in order to make a splash, you almost have to. And I think teams are posturing. Teams are up against the cap, which is, I guess, limiting what they can do. Teams have to take money back, and that has to fall in the conversation when you're dealing with trades. But there's going to be some trades made. There's going to be things happening. Teams have made players available. They have to settle on and see testing the market, I guess, is what they do. It'll be interesting here with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, you're looking at a team that went on an 8-game winning streak. Now they've lost 3 in a row. It's a team that had great success at the end of the year last year. What do they need to add? And that's what John Davidson and Jarmo Kekalainen and their staffs look into. Every day they approach the day. If there's something that can make this team better, they're going to do it. And I think every team is doing that. And you look at the team like Buffalo's, I'm sure everyone's in that building now seeing what they can get.
You mentioned Buffalo, and of course that's a team that knows they're not going to the playoffs, so they can start to have those discussions with teams. But in the East, there are so many teams that are in the mix right now, and there's so much parity in the East. I think the West is a little bit different, where you have kind of the haves and the have-nots. There's so many teams that are definitely they're going to make it into the playoffs, and there are some teams there that it might look like they're going to, but I think they know in their own minds that they're not going to. So I just wonder if there won't be very many deals done within the conference, but maybe cross-conference deals are the ones you're going to see the most.
That's a good point by you. I mean, the Western Conference is laid out, and then you have teams over here in the East, and it's like, well, what are you really going to do? That's going to, who's going to make that move? You don't want to mess up with being right in the mix where some of these teams are. So that's a good point. You could see some of that stuff, but I think teams are excited to make trades. There's some teams that really need that shot in the arm. Some teams might get players back, like the Blue Jackets got Nathan Horton, got a nice shot in the arm. We got Bobrovsky back, which was a nice little boost. You need that little refreshment, especially, this time of year. teams have been pushed, teams have been tested. Sometimes it's refreshing to get that new face in the room. It just kind of does something to the room. So these teams, even like the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks, they're always looking. They're always scouting. You see the scouts in all the buildings along with myself. Sorry, they're trying to do and work any angle they can. And there's something about getting that fresh face, even if it's just a fourth line checker or a role player, that sometimes puts you over the top.
Yeah, no question. That one more defenseman, that third or fourth line role guy, that's usually what playoff teams are looking for. Those kind of guys. A lot of teams are just tweaking their rosters right now, not doing a major overhaul at this point. So that's a very good point. Speaking of fresh faces, you'll be able to see our fresh faces tomorrow morning because the Washington Capitals are going to be here. We are going to carry the morning skate live on Jackets TV. Now, we did this last Thursday. I think it was pretty well received. We're going to do it again tomorrow with the Capitals coming to town. So Jody and I will be on Jackets TV starting at 9:55. Now, if you don't want to do the math, that's 5 minutes before 10 o'clock in the morning. The skate starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll talk with head coach Todd Richards. We'll get a couple of players, their reaction, getting ready for the game against the Washington Capitals. And we'll give you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at what goes on at the morning skate.
I don't know how you tied fresh faces in with that, but that's pretty clever, and we'll just go with it. But, yeah, that's always fun. I'm looking forward to that. I actually forgot we were going to do that. I'll be looking forward to seeing your fresh face, and that'll be Thursday morning. So that's fun. I mean, the Washington Capitals will be here. Ovechkin. I'm sure we'll have some great scoops by tomorrow morning.
Well, I'm glad that I reminded you then because I wouldn't want you to show up late for that broadcast. So that's coming up tomorrow morning. Not so fresh. Yeah, we might not be fresh. That fresh faces. You know what? If we were writing fresh faces, there'd be quotation marks around it. But let's just put it that way. So that's tomorrow morning. So thanks for listening to The Inside Edge. For Jody Shelley, I'm Bob McElligott.
You've been listening to The Inside Edge with Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.